That's the real reminder I need. Oh my god, I didn't even realize it was 6:35. I thought it was 20. Everybody. So we will be calling to order the 13th session of the 53rd Senate. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. All who are willing and able, please stand. Ready? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Colorado State acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous of the native tribes. We recognize the indigenous people as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion. And significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university is built on. This acknowledgement is education and inclusion. We must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment. Next, we have swearing in of senators and associates. You are swearing in, please come to the front, and I ask that the Chief Justice come down and deliver the oath of office.
You repeat after me. I
I,
state your name.
Frankie Salazar,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to defend and uphold
to defend and uphold
the rules and
the
regulations
rules and regulations
set forth by the Constitution
set forth by the Constitution
of the Associated Students of Colorado State University,
of the Associated Students of Colorado State University,
and will rightfully perform
and will rightfully perform
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Next, we'll move on to consent agenda. I will actually be changing the agenda. RMSSC is not presenting today due to personal situations that have happened with Peter. They will be presenting next week. And so in that place, I'm moving to have a BSOC presentation for the bill that BSOC is presenting tonight. If I hear any dissent to that, please speak up.
Did they send that presentation?
Yes. Any other questions? All right, BSOC will be presenting during guest presentation. Is there any other dissent to the agenda at this moment?
Can we add motion to add the accessibility rights to the agenda? That's the
That hasn't
accessibility
passed
pockets.
committees yet,
Yes, it has.
but the committee updates have not been uploaded to the weekly email.
Is there any other edits to the agenda at this time?
But
I forgot roll call. We'll start with beginning roll call. The clerk can call the roll. All right. Senator Bakari. Chair Kelly.
Here.
Senator Van Tassel. Senator Barrett. Senator Cole Johnson. Senator Winston. Senator Tabib.
Here.
Senator. Senator Wilson.
Here.
Chair Oswald. Chairman Onti.
Senator Melchior,
Here.
Senator Schumer, present. Senator Chacon, here. Senator Snyder,
Present.
Chair Taylor,
Here.
Senator McAllister Johnson, Chair Trout, Senator Davis, here. Senator Frisbee, here. Senator Levy, Senator Reese, Associate Senator Rivera, Associate Senator Salazar, here. Senator Barron, present. Associate Senator Camber, sorry, present. Senator Lasser,
Here.
Associate Senator Alvarez, here. Senator Pickerel, Associate Senator Yankowski, Senator Buckner, Senator Lancey,
Here.
Associate Senator Ozor, Associate Senator Leggett, Associate Senator Miller, present. Associate Senator Myers,
Here.
Associate Senator Byrd,
Present.
Senator Huizenga, Senator Huizenga, Senator Brown, Senator Demarius, Senator Vaughn, Associate Senator Turner, Associate Senator Treasurer.
Nation Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Senator Hill and Councilman Cook.
Make sure you're added to attendance. We already did consent agenda. So is there anyone from the gallery who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will move to take a speaker. I'll ask anyone presenting for BSOF to come on down. Also, please be aware, we have been having technical difficulties for the past 30 minutes. So we will do our best if anything cuts off.
More like, so. If anything actually pulls off. Hold up with it like that. One more minute. Mhm.
Right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We have a really important bill coming up that we're going to have on the docket later, but we just wanted to have a little presentation to talk about it. I'm just going to be straightforward with it. We are asking for a lot of money. We've had a very beneficial year so far. Members of BSOF are some of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. We got our board ratified 4 weeks in advance of last year, and we've been working diligently each and every week to make sure that student organizations are funded. Last year, BSOP was only able to allocate 115,000 out of the 150,000 they were allocated. And this year, our budget was reduced to 125,000. In the bill, it also outlines each year almost, our budget has been continuously being cut. Started off at around 200,000 during COVID years. It's now down to 125,000. So it's been our goal to fund as much as we can this year in order to prevent further cuts and show that student organizations are what makes CSU great. Aside from that, we're going to get into a little bit about BSOP and Travel Grant, what we've accomplished so far. The ask right now is for $30,000. 22,000 would go to BSOF for funding student organizations, and 8,000 would go towards the travel grant. If you don't know what either of those are, BSOF, or for student organization funding, we primarily fund educational events, cultural events, everything that makes CSU the best university that it can be. And then travel grant, also run by the BSOF board, but we fund educational and cultural events to places and hotel costs, things of that nature. So without further ado, I appreciate you all being here on a Wednesday night. I know finals are coming up here soon, but yeah. Next slide, please. All right, so a little outline for the presentation today. I'm Ashton, by the way. I'm the Director of Finance for this year. I'll be going through the BSOF request, information from this year, some statistics from other universities and what they're allocated. And then finally, we'll have a student organization speaker from an organization we funded this year. Eric right here was with BMES. They had a Bio Innovate event, so we'll be discussing a little bit about that. And then Tangiel will be doing a similar presentation, all in the same PowerPoint, about the travel grant request. We will also have students speak as well. Next slide, please. All right, so just a little background. We've allocated approximately $86,998 for the entirety of the year. We knew at the start of the year we were getting a lot of requests very fast, and we usually have about a third on hold for spring events. We decided to hold some extra for spring events because we anticipated the increase. So half will go to fall events that have happened, and we have one event coming up here in December. And then the other half was saved for spring events because we know there's typically an increase in spring events overall. Like I was saying, we've had a large increase in requests with the added cut of our budget of $25,000. It's been difficult to acquire the amount of funding that we need in order to be successful. So we have come before you all to ask to bring it almost to what it was last year. And we want to continue to have a successful funding board each and every year. We're also being very diligent about trying to get a board filled before the end of this year. Typically, they don't fill the board roles until the following year, which makes it very difficult to fund events in the beginning of the semester. But like I said, we were able to get our members ratified fairly early on and fund more events. And then last, like I was saying, events typically increase during spring, so the extra funding from Senate would keep driving people from student orgs to know what ASCSU is and to fulfill the CSU experience. And here's just some pictures from funded events, just so you can see the breadth of what we have funded so far. We've had the ASCSU powwow. We had, like I said, Bio Innovate, Indian Nights, Live Laugh Languages, and many more that have brought hundreds to thousands of people to these events, bringing awareness to student organizations as a whole, CSU and ASCSU. We've had many organizations shout us out during their events, so it really is a strong program that we have here, and we want to continue success we've had thus far. Next slide, please. And here's a little outline of the events we funded so far. There's a further breakdown in the bill of exactly the amount of costs and when they're happening, whether that's fall or spring. And yeah, we've had a lot of events this year, which I'm really proud of all of our board members, as well as my deputy for doing such a great job, really reaching out. We've had the most outreach events we've ever had in the past few years, at least. And we've had around 50 student orgs at each outreach event. So we're really bringing awareness to ASCSU and student organizations. Next slide, please. Up next, Grafton and I did a little research on other student funding boards and versus their attendance. If we look at CU Boulder, I got in contact with their SOAC chair, so that's the Student Organization Allocation Committee. Similar to BSOF, same thing. They fund student organization events. So their attendance is similar to us, as you can see, around like 36,000 or so. But they have 250,000, which is twice as much as we are awarded, meaning they have $6.86 per student that goes back into student organizations. Like I said, student organizations is really how we can give student funds right back to the student in the best way possible. Other than that, just another university to compare ourselves to. We see UNC, much lower attendance, around 8,000, but they have almost as much funding as we do. They have $105,000. So when you average it out, UNC has around $12.47 per student, almost 4 times as much as we do, sitting at $3.71. This year, we had around 34,000 students, and then we had 125,000 allocated to BSOP this year. So as you can see, other universities, we really want to catch up and, just be a front runner with helping student organizations benefit the university. Up next, we have Eric. We funded their Bio Innovate event for BMES, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience and what the funds were able to do for him.
Thank you very much, Ashton. As you heard, my name is Eric Gutierrez Camacho, and I'm the industry director for our Biomedical Engineering Society here at Colorado State University. And so with the help of ASCSU and the BSOF grant, we were able to host our, this was the first year that we've ever done this event, but we created the Bio Innovate Career Expo. And so what the vision for this event was to be able to invite and host companies, biomedical engineering companies from all over the US, and be able to give CSU students the perfect medium to be able to connect and network with industry professionals and potentially score an internship for the following summer of 24. And so, yeah, with the help of the BSOF grant, we were able to get things such as catering, get chairs and table rentals. We were able to get tablecloths, beverages, beverage dispensers. And so we were able to make this a very quality event. And that was all due to the help of the BSOF grant. Without it, I think we would have had to cut a lot of those features, such as the catering and stuff. And it just lowers the quality of the event overall. But it was a complete success. We had 10 companies here from the area, biomedical engineering companies. And we had about 140 BME students show up. And so we had a very successful night, tons of networking and connecting. And we're hoping to be able to do this on a yearly basis. And so, yeah, without the help of the BSOF grant, this would not have been possible. And so some of the companies that we had there were big names such as like Medtronic and Tolmar and Terumo BCT, Tencentric, and much more. And so this is a very exciting event, and we're hoping to continue this on a yearly basis. And we're very appreciative of the help that BSOF and ASCSU was able to give us. And so thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, it was a great event. I was able to go. It really impacted me personally just to see the work that we've all been able to accomplish and what ASCSU can really give to students. So yeah, next slide, please. Like I've been saying, we need funding because we're running out. We've had a very successful year filled with events, many planned for next semester, but we really want to keep this going, keep ASCSU's name out in the open, show student orgs what we can do, how we can help them. Yeah, so we're anticipating to be out of money by January, February time. Like I said, we'll still have events during spring as we planned out earlier this year, but the funding would really help out student organizations and BSOP as a whole. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got so far. Next slide, please. So plan for the funding, like I was saying, the $22,000 for BSOP would allow for 2 large events or 10 smaller events. That's typically the amount that we see. And just a little background on our process for funding events. We operate through viewpoint neutrality, so we don't take our biases. In each event, we really try to focus on, does the event follow the bylaws? We have a training from Ali Raza. He's the BSOP advisor and assistant director of involvement for SLICE. And we really got to learn about how we can keep our biases in check while funding student organizations from various backgrounds. Yeah, additionally, with if awarded funding, we would like to present bi-weekly. Tangia and I will switch off just to keep you all updated of where the funds will go. And yeah, just to be open and transparent about future BSOP events, because this has been a great year so far, and we can make it even better. So that's all I got on BSOP, I believe. And next up, we have travel grants.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tangia, and I'm the Deputy Director of Finance, and I'm here to just kind of talk to you guys about travel grants. I think that's what we've done so far. Like Ashton said, we will be asking for 30 grand total. 8,000 of that will be going into travel grant. So from what we have done so far with the travel grant, we have allocated 19,000 out of 20,000 total in funding that has gone towards 17 student organizations. This funding goes into about any travel expense you can think of: transportation, lodging, gas mileage. And usually we get 2 to 3 travel grants approved each week. Here are just a few of the student organizations we have funded. As you can see, a lot of the travel grant goes towards national conferences. This is a great opportunity for students to talk with employers and people who have worked in their field. A lot of the conferences consist of panels, workshops, and we've been told that the conferences are very beneficial. What the other events that we see the grant go towards are competitions. We saw the CSU mock trial team debate for the first time ever with other universities in the West. Very exciting. And up next, we will have Liz from the Wildlife Society kind of talk about their experience after coming back from their trip.
Hi, everyone. First, I would like to extend the gratitude of the greater CSU chapter of the Wildlife Society for helping to fund 9 of our members to attend the national conference meeting in Louisville, Kentucky earlier this month. For those who don't know, National Conference Meeting for the Wildlife Society collects about 2,000 individuals from over 55 internationally recognized chapters of the Wildlife Society in one location for both educational and for professional development purposes. And so arguably one of the people who benefited most from our national conference trip is here with me, Daniel Rice, who would like to kind of talk about his experiences and the experiences that our members had on this trip.
Yeah, hello everyone. Like Liz said, my name is Daniel. I'm recently out of our president position as of last night. We had elections, but the Wildlife Society itself, our student chapter here at CSU, is probably the largest organization we have in the Warner College of Natural Resources. At the beginning of the semester, we had our first meeting with over 100 students in attendance, which is pretty amazing. But wildlife itself is a very small field, but it's also an extremely connected and very heavily networked field, which is why this conference has been such an amazing opportunity. It is the single largest gathering of wildlife professionals in the United States. And within North America as well. And because of that, it provides a ridiculous amount of opportunities for us. Those included workshops and extracurricular opportunities that taught a lot of our students technical skills as well as social skills, and gave a lot of exposure to different kinds of skills in themed wildlife. We also took advantage of Mammoth Cave as an educational trip to expand upon the kind of ecology we learned here at CSU. There's also an extraordinary opportunity for professional development that extended to employers of pretty much any end of our field were represented at this conference. And there's an opportunity to get jobs there. There's an opportunity to see different kinds of research, but also the management side of our field, which is kind of how it's professionally split. And it's an unparalleled opportunity to explore next steps, both for current undergraduates who are looking to get their next leg in, and for people like me who are coming out of school in the next semester and looking towards grad school and other jobs. But the professional connections are immense. Like Liz said, there were over 2,000 people there. About 40–50% of those were students. And there's an opportunity to develop mentorships there, and learn about people that are doing what you want to do. The student connections develop opportunities for camaraderie. We participated in a quiz bowl competition, which is the first time we've been able to go to this conference in about 5 years and participate in one of those. We also had an opportunity for different groups pertaining to different identities in the Wildlife Society to gather the receptions for that, so people of like minds and like identities and demographics can meet up and see other people in those kinds of groups. And probably our biggest development out of it is we're planning a regional conclave, which is the first time the Rocky Mountains have ever seen that. We're hoping to gather student chapters from around this area of the country, which is something that other sides of the nation do, and we haven't been able to do yet. But out of this came the resources for that and the guidance for that. We also developed CSU connections with alumni. There was a reception just for CSU wildlife people, and we were able to represent CSU as the second oldest student chapter of the Wildlife Society and one of the top wildlife programs in the nation. So really, there's no opportunity like this chapter meeting that happens every year. And it's a very small but connected field, and we're very grateful for the funding that you all are able to give to us. So thank you.
All right, and lastly, I just kind of want to talk about why we need more funding. When student organizations apply, they typically apply for the maximum amount of funding. So for a group of 3 people or more, the maximum amount of funding is $1,200. And we see a lot of student organizations coming in with groups wanting to travel, ranging around 5 to 13 attendees. ESOP has also done a really good job this year about marketing and just getting out there, talking to the different student organizations. So we have had an increase of demand for the travel grant. And lastly, we currently do have 4 student organizations who have reached out in the last few weeks about applying for the travel grant. So because we only have 1,000 left, that is not enough to fund the amount that they're asking for. Thank you so much for listening to us and hearing us out. Let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, at this time, if anyone has any questions, we'll just go by the first grade placard. I'll start with Senator Davis.
Could you guys explain a little bit more about the travel grant and just like kind of who used it and like why they need to travel, like just kind of a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so typically, student organizations here who are looking to travel to, like I said, a national conference, a debate, a competition, they apply for the travel grant, and the funding typically goes towards various travel expenses. So it can go towards the purchasing of a conference ticket, it can go towards lodging, it can go towards transportation. But usually student groups, like I said, the Biomedical Engineering Society, a lot of student groups that are focused within their major come to us. That answers your question.
Yeah, that's, thank you.
Next, we have Chair Christine.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Wonderful presentation. My question is what is, maybe you don't have solid plans yet for next semester, especially with the money, but what are some ideas of events that would happen in the spring semester if we gave you this money?
Yeah, so there are already like a certain like number of like backlog organizations that really want to have events. One event that happened last year that they're asking for this year as well is the SCSU Landscape Architecture. They have a yearly landscape event where they bring a lot of people and presenters. Yeah, so they're looking for funding for that. Snow Riders are looking to do an event. We have Africans United are looking to do an Africans United Nights, similar to Indian Nights. Yeah, just a lot of organizations are really looking for funding. And as I said, we're running out, but we really want to help these student orgs and further the goal of ASCSU, you know, just helping students. And this is the most direct way to give money right back to the students.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Wilson.
Okay, so you guys have $120,000.
125.
125. Okay. You said by January, February, you'll run out of money, right? What is the plan if we give you $30,000 that you won't run out of money based off of that statistic within a month
So
for
we
next
get, yeah,
semester?
so we get another 22,000 and, I see that, is it your opinion that we shouldn't like run out of money until the end?
I mean, is that not what the plan is?
Yeah, so essentially, like you need to fund events early on because with timing and all that, so we basically can't fund anything basically past April. So January, February, March is basically the timeline where you can fund events. But we're really trying to just get more events in general for the next year. And the funding that we would receive from you all, we would want to spend that all because that is what the fund would go to. But yeah, like you were saying, anticipated to go by January, February, we'll have like events all of spring. So it'll go towards the entire district.
So you're funding things until April, right? So you guys got ratified in September, right? So September, October, November, that's 3 months, plus 2 weeks in December and 2 weeks in January. And you said by end of January, early February, you'll be out of money. So that's 4 months you went through $125,000. That still leaves you 2 months. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that meant you spent $30,000 a month. So that means that you only have money till February with that
Point
logic?
of information, they've only spent 90,000.
Yeah, until January, that's 4 months. So I'm just confused how you're gonna get that extra $30,000 to
Yes,
fund.
right. So like you're saying, in terms of like allocating funding and spending funding, those are two different things. So let's say you allocate $40,000 in 1 month, but there's events 4 months. So that'd be an event each month. So technically that's 10,000 each month, if that makes sense. So while we've spent, the 90,000 in, 2.5 months, there's events basically every month in, spring. We've had, several events during each month this year. So like I was saying, the extra money would help for like 2 more events or 10 smaller events, combination of those, how it goes out. But basically it would extend the amount of events we could fit into the timeline next year. As we have around like 5 or 6 events for next semester, they're not all in like, they're not all January events, not all February, they're all spread through spring semester. So the additional money would allow for more events in that time period, if that makes sense.
For sure. And then I have another question for Ashton. Correct me if I'm wrong, exec funds you guys, right?
No. So basically, the budget each year is broken out into like the exec budget, BSOP budget, travel grant. So it's basically like how we have like Senate discretionary, you get 100,000, similar with us. We got 125,000, similar process like that. Exec is definitely completely separate. They got like 186,000, and that's really for, their events such as like Grill the Buff, stuff like that. But as far as like funding from the executive board, it's completely separate.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time.
Something I'll just add in general is the expeditious nature of allocating this funding can often be seen as a bad thing. You might have touched on this a second ago, but spending funding on student clubs this quickly shows an involved and engaged campus, and that's exactly what we want to see. So that's a good thing. In all other connotations, to spend $125,000 over the span of a few months, maybe not such a good thing, but this indicates a really involved and engaged campus, which is exactly what we want to see.
Next, we have Chair Trump.
I definitely want to have more time. I don't. I'll also, I guess to kind of chat with you on this. As many of you know, Ramride has not been operating this semester, and that's a huge area where a lot of students get their student funding. So I guess for members who've been in previous years, has that number of folks who have come in to ask for funding, has that increased this semester specifically? Yeah, just
folks who have been here in years past in this.
Yeah. Do we have any from last year's? I think these are all new members. We do have like 2 returning, Akil and Nick have returned this year. Don't think they're with us. But in terms of funding, I mean, I looked last year and they didn't spend nearly as much, like, they didn't allocate nearly as close to what we've been able to allocate. And it really started like the first couple of weeks, we were just getting requests. And, you know, that's something I had to manage, like the inflow of a lot of student orgs. What can we do? What can't we do? But at least what our advisor, Ali Raza, has said is that this year has been a really big uptick, likely due to, you know, coming out of COVID, more student orgs are getting up and running. They're trying to have events again. Many student orgs are having events that they haven't been able to have in years. So yeah, I'd say in terms of the past couple of years specifically, you know, the events are increasing and the funding is decreasing. So.
And I'll add on that, you know, with like Ramride funding specifically, it's a nice way to make funding fairly quickly. You know, at least it was initially. Has been changing last semester, as many folks know. We're kind of going through puberty right now, in terms of Ramride. So is it the hope that with Ramride coming back into next semester, that the $30,000 can help, I guess, like not pay you down right away, and then also have other ways to recommend student orgs for additional funding besides just BSOP?
Yeah, definitely. Like we had our outreach event with Ramride, we really want to get, one of our main goals isn't just to fund student organization events, it's also just to see how can we help other student orgs get funding. So that's one of my jobs when students are coming asking for funding questions. And I recommend other grants like Coca-Cola grant, Lila B. Morgan, stuff like that. They can also get funding through their colleges, but it is really difficult to receive funding in general as a student organization, which is why we loved having Ramride at our outreach event, just seeing all the good that we can do with student fees. And yeah, I think it's really beneficial to just bring awareness to all the funding sources. So let's say if we do run out of money, Ollie, our advisor, and I are setting up a plan to keep having outreach events just to get people aware of all the funding possibilities and to apply early on so they can get that funding next year. Yeah, does that answer everything?
That is, thank you. I yield.
Next we have Senator Hitt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, my question is, when would you like this money to be allocated? Is the bill on the floor today? Okay, and do you want it expedited?
Part of the information that was endorsed by DSA.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Just because it is endorsed by BSOFT does not mean it's expedited unless the money is coming from BSOFT.
okay, so the way we see it, Ali, our advisor, very important within like BSOP. He's taking a leave next year for semester C, so he will be gone January through March. And what we've been talking about is we would like to know before the end of the semester if we get the funding so we can plan that out in advance and see how that's going to go while Ali is still here. So preferably, we would like it this semester. I don't know how that impacts expediting. Does anyone like have any?
Yeah, so we won't ask to expedite it, but we will ask the speaker and the various chairs of the committee that the speaker sends this legislation to get that through this next week so that we can hopefully vote on this piece of legislation on the following Senate session on the 6th. If that answers the questions at hand, if I'm correct in that.
Okay.
Next we have Senator Kurt. I have kind of 2 points here. One is a question just for general space, because I don't know if this is something that I should know and just don't. Since exec has 189,000, why are we not having exec give this money? Is there like a
Yeah, so, the executive budget, when it's conceived, it's built by the president and the vice president.
Yeah.
And so they put in, where they think their priorities will be. So a lot of that is tied up in specific line items that we can't move around. So it would involve taking money out of illogical places like the Department of State and Local Policy or the Department of Diversity and Inclusion or the Department of Academics.
In that level of point, I feel like there was like a large push for exec board this year to be focusing on like rebringing traditions. We talked about that when Grill the Bus was coming back in, about rebuilding that community in that space. So I feel like this would be right up exec's alley for this year, you know, in terms of giving that funding to BSOF so that they can refund those clubs. So in terms of like the breakdown of the budgets, I don't think this would be pulling away from anything in that sense.
Sure. Can you pull up, budget on Teams?
I can't pull it up.
We're gonna pull up the budget real quick. I'll, that way we can see tangibly, some examples. So it might take a second to pull that up. But,
Sorry.
there's
Cutting off.
tens, 20s, 30s of projects going through executive right now. You should see my whiteboard and my calendar in my office. It looks like a crazy man wrote it, but, so there's a lot of money tied up in other things that are pending. And so really it's not realistic for executive to fund this at the moment. I think we all are aware of the budget cuts this year all around the board. We're feeling really tight. However, if Senate feels like this is an unreasonable ask, we're happy to iron that out in committees, and see if we want to negotiate that, around and whatnot. How are we looking on that budget, Mr. Parliamentarian?
What budget are you wanting?
So if you go to Microsoft Teams,
Can really get to Microsoft Teams right now.
can't get to Microsoft Teams.
It was sent on the agenda.
Is that, like, constant, that budget constantly up on the website, or was it sent out in the weekly email? Because it's not, so.
It was apparently sent
It
out in a
was
weekly email like 3
Sent
weeks
out
ago.
in a weekly email.
Maybe pull that.
Due
In
to-
weekly,
yeah,
or, like, recently?
Say that first part again.
In a weekly email, or recently? Because like, obviously it was sent out in May, but it's become a lot of the numbers.
Again, when there was a reallocation of the budget.
Right, that was in like,
It's like 2 or
maybe
3
August.
weeks ago.
raise your hand if you joined this organization since August.
If the body has an issue with pulling up this budget, we certainly don't have to. I just wanted to shed some tangible light to it.
It's not a lot.
So,
I'd love for you to send that out and send it next week, so like,
sure. Yeah, we can include it when we vote on it for sure. But for now, back to the issue at
Yeah,
hand.
that, I just wanted to kind of get that point, because we get 100, you guys get 125. You guys get 189. I mean, if there was the space for that to be like a thing that you guys could handle,
Sure.
I would feel like that would be right in your line of like stuff we're trying to do this year. So yeah, that's why I wanted to ask that first. And then my second thing, that I wanted to bring up, I'm a president of a club. I know a lot of presidents of clubs. It's really great what you guys are doing. I
Been past several years. So far is basically, it's, the first come, first served in terms of if the student organization follows our bylaws, and they're the first in the allocation of the funding, then they're awarded that funding. As long as, they're asked for their event is within our bylaws, like that's how it goes. Which is why it's been really important this year with our outreach events. To, get the word out so they can apply as soon as possible, because, we've had this whole semester for student orgs to apply even if it's spring. And I think it's really important just to get like awareness out as soon as possible so we can plan that out. And then in terms of planning the funds, like I said, it would go the same process as it has been years prior. However, we are also discussing changes to the bylaws. So if you have any recommendations on, if you want to change how our process is, we would definitely take that into consideration as well.
It's really not a change thing. I just wanted to know what you guys' kind of just general plan was.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next we have Associate Camber.
I completely forgot what I was going to add. I got my time.
Next we have Chair Christie.
Not to mention, how much time for Q&A?
10 minutes.
10 minutes left. Chair Christie.
Okay, I have two really quick questions. First, is it possible that we can look at the executive budget in the future, like, and be able to see if there's any way that we could maybe split the bill, maybe somewhere in there, just working with executive? Is that possible at all?
Yeah, I think the most ideal way of going about this, and correct me if you think something different, is to present the exec budget, the bill in this presentation in budgetary committee, which I believe this bill will most likely go through. That's committees are designed for that. It's the best place to kind of iron out concerns and questions. And so then we can do some negotiations there. I'll make sure that either the president or the vice president are able to attend as well, since they made the budget and they can speak into that, and one of the authors of the bill as well. Does that work?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Does that work for the authors?
And then my other question is I know that, we're having discussions right now about next week's meeting. Are we, I don't know if we have an answer yet, but are we next week? Question mark?
So that is something that I'm probably gonna bring up during legislative report, just to give like a full consensus, but also I just remembered some information. This bill wouldn't be able to hit the floor next week, mostly because I believe committee chairs aren't holding committee during dead week. And so that is a little.
I understand that. Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll still be fine. It's just like, I'll email, I'll leave.
So that's something we'll talk about during legislative purpose.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And I yield my time.
Last we have Senator Davis.
This is, I guess, kind of similar to Senator Burke's question, but if we did give this to you, would you plan on next year asking for a bigger budget so that you like don't have to come back? Not that we don't love seeing you, but
Yeah, so in terms of like what I personally would want, like, yes, I love a huge budget for DSOF. That I don't think that's necessarily up to me. Like, I can give advice and be like, yes, I'd like more money for DSOF, but it really comes down to like, where can money really come from? I know when Nick was helping make the budget, Nick's been on BSOF for several years, and he said one of the last things he wanted to pull money from was BSOF. It's just how it sometimes ends up. So yeah, I mean, I'd love more money, but I don't think that's necessarily up to me.
And going back to the present concern of the allocation between exec and BSOF and Senate discretionaries, it shows that President DeSalvo, BSOF is his passion project. He's been a part of it. That's where he started in ASCSU. That's where he learned the ropes of ASCSU, and he still cut that area of funding. So we can tell that it's not favoritism of budgeting. It's legitimately a holistic analysis of where we think, or where the president and vice president think that the money will best be allocated, and that's what they landed on. And sometimes unforeseeable circumstances arise, and we have a more active RSO community than we expected. So
that makes sense. Thank you. I yield.
And with that, There's no more questions. Thank you, BSOF, so much for presenting. We will call you all back up for the bill. Next, we move on to executive reports. Is there anyone currently from the executive branch? Look at that.
In case you guys don't know, we've been having a few technical issues this week, so we'll get that resolved and bring up the agenda soon. If you're on Zoom though, you should still see the agenda. So there's that.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Hayden, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And this year, I am your Director of Environment. So, as you know, the holiday season is coming up, and with the holiday season, there comes a lot of consumerism, right? And so it's people purchasing gifts for others, purchasing decorations, purchasing wrappings for these gifts, and with that also comes a lot of waste. And so we were thinking about this in the Environmental Affairs Department. We decided that we wanted to do an event that relates to this, teaches and also gives an alternative, right? And so what we decided to do is a sustainable holiday soiree just because it rhymes with holiday. And we're going to be working with the Student Sustainability Center and the Zero Waste team to host an event next Thursday, December 7th in the Corbett Hall Community Kitchen, 4 to 7 p.m. It's one of those rolling things where you can just come through at any time. What the Environmental Affairs Department is doing is we're creating, those dried orange garlands. They're really pretty. I have them in my window at home. They look lovely in the sunlight. And then the Zero Waste team is going to be creating candles and soaps. And then if you have any gifts that you'd like to wrap, we're going to be using repurposed wrappings. And so that includes like, what's it called? Fabric scraps from the Nancy Richardson? Thank you. Nancy Richardson Design Center. And then hopefully some old newspapers from the Collegian, etc. And so that's what the Student Sustainability Center will be hosting. And we have a little RSVP. I also have a I have a flyer to hand out to all of you if any of you would like to take a picture. I would really, really love to see all of you there. Those gifts that we're creating are things that can be used and or repurposed and or are biodegradable. Whereas a lot of gift wrapping is not biodegradable. And so definitely something to think about as you go into this holiday season. And I would love to see some of you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden, for your tireless work on that and environmental affairs in general. I'd also just want to shout out my entire cabinet, although not all of them are here, some of them are here, but all of them have been doing phenomenal and tireless work this entire semester to serve the student body and listen to the student body in that service. So I have two announcements tonight. One is an exciting one is a bittersweet one. I'll start with the exciting one. CSU is beating Colorado down the street 14-10. I'm watching it live. But I'll close that so I'm not distracted for this. The bittersweet announcement, 3 years is a long time. And that's how long Alejandra, our Deputy of Health, Alejandra, if you could wave your hand back there, has been in this organization. Alejandra is graduating in December. And due to her tireless work throughout the past years that she's been involved with ASCSU, we can recognize things like the Body Project. How many folks know what the Body Project is, have heard of it? You can see the fruits of your labor, Alejandra, and it won't be the same without you. A lot of CSU's progressive and, for lack of a better term, amazing health initiatives are due to the work of Alejandra and her guidance in executive and in this space for the past time that she's been in here. So let's give her an amazing round of applause as we send her off on her way to graduation this December. Alejandra, thank you for all that you do. And I hope that future cabinets are inspired by your work and model your work and your persona and your dedication to this role. Maddie will bring this up here in just a second, but we have an ASCSU, all ASCSU social event tomorrow at, I'll let her give you the details. But the purpose of this event is to bring all branches, even all boards, SFRB, LSAB, what am I forgetting? BSOF, what we just presented on. See, they run out of funding and we start forgetting them. Together in one cohesive and casual space that we can get to know each other on a personable level, aside from kind of the bureaucratic structure of our organization. And with that, I yield my time. Thank you very much.
So I'm giving the reports for our business and community liaison. This is that kind of social different identities than you, have different experiences than you, and can, it's really hard to picture living with people until you actually live with them. So this is a really good opportunity to come, mingle, talk, eat some food, have some really good thought-provoking discussion about living alone and life. And it's great. And I think we need one or two more panelists if anyone is still interested. When I say panelists, I mean we're getting a group of people to kind of talk and start discussions about living spaces and stuff, so that we can put it back on students who do attend and we can host the discussion. So if anyone is interested in doing that, please email me tonight. I know it's late notice, so no worries if not. I feel like we've got enough people, but I think one or two more would just be perfect. So yeah, email me. I'm gonna dip out, but yes, it would be so fun. I hope to see you all there for some free food also. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name's Caitlin. I'm your elections manager. Just a nice little reminder for you all. My pronouns are she, they, just because I don't remember the last time I told you all that. But I'm just here to get on all of your cases about ranked choice voting. Once again, gotta love us. So in order for us to be as courteous and respectful of our wonderful employees that work over at RamWeb, we do need to give them a final confirmation by Friday, December 1st. So if you want ranked choice voting to happen, I need to know by Friday, December 1st. So reach out to me, share your opinions, email me, whatever you need to do to get that opinion across, please. Because there is also no guarantee that this can happen successfully at all, let alone by the spring elections. So if you have those thoughts, opinions, whatever about ranked choice voting, make sure that it gets to me by Friday, December 1st. I will be checking my email at the latest by 6 p.m. So it must be in my inbox before 6 p.m. And I will send that out in the minutes as well. Thank you.
I'll do this right now, actually. We'll take a quick little vote about Senate and if we would like to do ranked choice voting during the spring or not, so you can have that confirmation tonight. So, does anyone need a clarification of what ranked choice voting is, what it affects the spring elections, or any questions in between? Great. All those in favor of having ranked choice voting for spring elections, please raise your placards. You can put your placards down.
Online.
They have not made any votes yet.
Yes.
Oh, never mind. That's at the bottom of my screen. If you'd like to
All
unmute
those
and say your
not
vote.
in favor, please raise your placards.
Okay. You can send me a chat message.
You can put your placard down, and all those who abstain from the vote, please raise your placards. Thank you. And a vote from 23 to 1 to 1. Senate will like ranked choice voting. With that, we'll move to legislative reports, officers. I'll start. Yeah, so this is where December 6th comes into play, because I know there has been a lot of like conversation of people were like, we didn't think we had Senate next week, or the like because of dead week. So, but because of RMSMC, we do have to have Senate next week. But I would like to give you all the time to actually study for finals and take whatever breaks you need, not need to sit here until crack of dawn at night, even though it's not allowed anymore. So I'm thinking we just do the RMSMC presentation, we adjourn, y'all get the nights to yourself and you can study and relax because y'all are students first and y'all aren't here to argue or debate. I will be making final decisions on Friday, but that's probably what's gonna happen next week because I'm stressed for finals, so I assume some of y'all are stressed for finals.
Might have clarification with like attendance, like roll call still happen?
We could, yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, I am truly expecting like a fourth of Senate because of the fact that it is dead week. And so I don't even think we'll reach quorum. Which means a lot of the stuff that we do will not be implemented until after spring break or winter break. Was there another question?
Which is also why we would not be doing any bills or anything, we would just be doing the presentation. And you can always feel free to just pull us up in the background while you study on Zoom.
True. Associate Cameron?
I was just wondering what thoughts were about expediting the BSOF bill. I know that we don't have committees next week, and because it is BSOF, maybe that's something to consider of just so that that work can begin and maybe
We will discuss this during our BSOF presentation time after legislative reports.
Any other questions? Yeah, so as of right now, currently, next week's Senate will just be the RMSMC presentation. We will leave time after for questions and discussion, and then y'all are free to go study or take a nap or go home. We will also, I'm gonna take all the time at the beginning to give any graduates who are graduating this semester, because I know there are some in this room, a little shout out and saying thank you for being here. Is there any other person on officers?
Yes. So I actually have two announcements. One, we should have technology working now finally, so there hopefully should not be any more hiccups. And two, I know some of you have been sending me some bills. I just want to do a bit of clarification on that so I can actually access those and then upload those to the weekly email. Please send those as a attached file to your email, not as a link to a SharePoint or any of that sort of thing, because that typically does not let me have access. And then I have to request you access, and not always are those requests seen very immediately. And so your bill or legislation might be delayed in that situation. I yield.
So this is more of a front desk announcement. If you received an email from us about the sweatshirts, please come grab them by this week. As of next week on Monday, it will be first come, first served for whatever sizes we have. And then Zayal, our marketing department head, will be ordering more after break.
Next, we will move on to committee abstracts. I will actually start. Chair Oslan gave me their announcement, and I will read that out real quickly. But it's mostly saying that budgetary will be holding a session this Friday at 11:30 because they will not be having committee during dead week. That is their entire announcement. Now we'll go by the first week placard. Great Trout.
Hi, all. I'm really excited to announce that the Accessibility Caucus is nearing the completion of its December report. I really want to give a huge shout out to members of the caucus and their dedication and work towards our goals. We're still finalizing that report, and due to us not meeting next week, we plan to present this report next semester as soon as possible, hopefully by the second or third semester. I definitely meant week. It's a pretty extensive document right now with everything not being added on yet. It's already over 30 pages. So we will be working, me and caucus leadership will be working on a presentation to do in front of Senate, just to kind of go over a quick summary, an overview of it. And then we're still working out how, but the Senate does that report. Do they adopted through a resolution, a bill, XYZ? We're still having those conversations. So yeah, individual members who are part of the caucus, if you have any individual recommendations, please submit those to me by end of week. Just so I can get those finalized sooner rather than later. Thank you all again for your support and advocacy. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. Next, we have Chair Menotti.
This is just an FYI, anything that's going to be presented here is going to be seen this Friday. So do actually come to my committee. I might not be holding it next week, but if you still want to talk about stuff that is going to be presented today, come to my committee. And then I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next, we have Chair Taylor.
This week in committee, we saw the funding WGAC bill. We still have that in committee. And so if you want to come and talk about that, we had some discussions going that we'll be continuing into next semester because we will not be meeting next week. So come to committee next semester. We don't have a time picked yet, but we'll have that at some point, and I'll just keep you all updated on that. I yield.
We will discuss committee times the first week back from break, and I will ask chairs that first week back, just send out like a when to meet to all your normal members and see when you can get your committee times together, and hopefully we can get those starting first 2-3 weeks back from break. Next is Chair Pisky.
So I didn't hold women's caucus on Monday, partially because it's coming up to finals and I figured that we needed a break, and also full disclosure, was working a 12-hour shift the next day. So yeah, always on that grind, I guess. Anyways, I will hold it Monday, but it is not a official meeting that will like follow an agenda. It's gonna be basically like come as you need, and you know, it could be a space to rant, to complain about finals, to study. I'll have some snacks. It'll just be a nice little break because we all can need it. So
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other chairs wish to speak at this time? Great. Next one to Senator and Associate reports. Start with the first race placard. I'll make my way this way. Chair Trout.
Again, we were talking about Ramride earlier, and I'm excited to talk about that. If folks don't know, I'm the community outreach coordinator for Ramride, and I'm super excited to announce that Ramride is coming back to its Renaissance era. Please join us for our Ramride relaunch pizza party this Thursday, November 30th, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. in the LSC room 281. That is the new off-campus life space. Ramride is coming back in the spring with our older model. So if folks are here before we transitioned, we're going back to that old model. I can go into more context with that later. So come learn how to raise funds for your student organization, or for a student organization that you're a part of, or ones that you know, to not only help BSOF take the pressure off of them, but also just a nice way to give back to your community. I also want to give a huge shout out to APAC, Swana, and the presenters tonight's Try to Understand. I found it to be incredibly thoughtful, engaging discussion about a really prevalent and dividing topic. So I really want to give a shout out to those folks and the folks who were there and who were physically and mentally present in that space. I really hope that future conversations like that continue. But yeah, that's all I have tonight. Enjoy y'all's winter break. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Next we have Senator Perk.
Good morning. Oh, wow. Thank you. It's very important to me. Hi, I am one of the several Pride senders in our space, and thus I'll be talking about our Pride events. One thing I'd like to say before I talk about our Pride events is that we have a new associate sender for Pride. Everyone welcome in. We love them a bit, and we're very excited to have them a bit. So I want to shout out for being here because we're really lucky to have them in this space. Yeah, we have a couple events coming up within this next week before finals starts really beating us up. I will not use stronger words than that because that's not good for the space. But yeah, we have a couple of things coming up specifically. We have a drag show that is free and on campus this Sunday. Senator Levy is waving their arm around because Senator Levy's also in it. I know, it's really great. Woo! I'm in it, I'm performing, Senator Levy's in it, Senator Levy's performing. It is a free event here in the LSC. It is from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Sunday. So if you are too tired of doing schoolwork and you really just don't want to think of Senator Levy's also hosting it. I didn't know Senator Levy was doing it. So real.
Stop wooing. Keep with some decorum in the space.
Don't woo too loud. Woo at a respectable volume. But yeah, that's gonna be happening from 6 to 8:30 this Sunday, here in the LSC. So if you don't want to do school stuff anymore, I know I don't, but I got a lot to do. I would happy to see you guys join us. It's really appreciated every time that I get to see you peeps in our spaces. We also have our Pride Family Dinner and Winter Lavender graduation. It is a ceremony that celebrates the people in our lives and in our spaces who have gotten through and are leaving kind of the school and the campus, but they're not leaving us. They are part of us, and we are always happy to have people come and show their support of those who are graduating. There is no RSVP unless you are looking to be, I'm blanking on the word, recognized, yeah, recognized for being a graduate. But we are always happy to see people showing support. So if you have the energy and the spoons, please come. Real. That is the 4th, 5 to 7 p.m. Should also be in the LSC if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So those are our two kind of coming up for new events. Good luck, y'all. Yeah, you'll do some time.
Thank you. Next we have Associate Rivera.
Alright, so as I guess it's a resume, but for part of El Centro, we're gonna have a winter clothing drive with collaboration of United Women of Color. We're accepting donations till next week on December 8th. The donation boxes are located at El Centro at room 225, also 232, 234, 333, and 335 here in the LAC. And then also we're gonna have a tamale night at next Monday from 5:30 to 9 p.m. And yeah, tonight is the last. Wait, is it tonight? Oh no. Sorry about this. Tomorrow night is the last day to RSVP, and we would be happy to have all of you there. So I give the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next we have Associate Camber.
Hi, y'all. You all ratified me into the Legislative Strategy Advisory Board, and we have Representative Kathy Kipp there this week. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. She spoke about her experience. It had been mostly in education, and she moved into environmental stuff. So she spoke a little bit about upcoming bills. I won't tell you guys all the details necessarily about that, but if you have questions or want to hear a little more about that, that's what we worked on this week was just our kind of Q&A and a little bit of that background on one of our local representatives. She represents South and Southeast Fort Collins. And I had something else that just completely left my brain. And I think that's pretty much all that I have. Everybody hang in there. We're almost there. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Next we have Chair Christie.
So there's no events that the WJC is holding, to my knowledge at least. But there is, I believe, in both the student service building and the LSC office, I believe we do have a box for the clothing drive, as mentioned earlier. And also while we'll be closed, I believe the victims assistant team number is still going to be active. So if you need anything over the holidays, it can be a tough time. Just make sure to reach out. But I believe that our in-person services are all suspended until next semester. Once we go on break. But yeah, stay safe for the holidays. I need my time.
Thank you. Next we have Senator Wilson.
Hey guys, so I'm not sure how many of you guys are aware, but we do have an ASCSU culture review group that was founded by Alex Silverhart, our vice president, and Letsy, who is our director of DEI. We essentially go over how ASCSU's culture is, if we have any big issues, how to solve them. It gives the vibe of a really cool think tank. But anyways, through this culture review, we decided to create a little bonding thing where we're going to do a winter arts and crafts and have hot cocoa on December 6th from 1 to 4 p.m. here. So if you want to come pick up your sweatshirt and have an excuse to get hot cocoa, maybe play with some paint, that could be really fun. I'm also on SFRB, and one thing that we discussed during the culture review group was the fact that in SFRB, we learned to have really thought out and thorough discussions and debates, and they've come to really cool ideas. And it's kind of been lacking in the Senate space to have those discussions and debates, similar to how it was prior to COVID. And I feel like we are currently at a space in our Senate body where we can start to have these discussions and debates again. And I urge people to work on their passion projects so we can have these discussions and debates and get some really cool things in the works for the student body, because we are an elected body. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next we have Chairman Alty.
Hey, y'all. So back stuff. Next week, BAC is going to be holding Black Healing Week, and we're going to have events basically throughout the entire week. So on Monday, there's going to be painting. On Tuesday, there is going to be a volleyball tournament over in the MAC gym. And then on Wednesday, there's going to be a bit of a rant sesh / spa night. So if you just want to get your nails done pretty, or if you just want to scream at the top of your lungs, great time to do that. You could do both even. And then on Thursday, there's going to be a capoeira night.
Capoeira.
Thank you, capoeira. And the way it's been described to me is dance fighting. So if you want to learn dance fighting, go to that on Thursday. And then on Friday, there's going to be a movie night in the back office. A lot of these, all the other events that aren't in the back gym are going to be held in the back office from 5 to 7. And then there's also going to be after hours from Monday to Thursday from 5 to 11, which are basically study hours for y'all who need to study for your exams. It's a good place, back office, great place to study. Great place to study if you can handle it. And then, yeah, also there'll be after hours as well on Sunday from 2 to 8. Don't quote me on that time. I might be wrong. So, yeah. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. A little bit. All those events are open for everyone to come. During volleyball night, I know a lot of times some people from APAC come and play with us in the gym, and it's really fun. We play some music and we just have fun playing volleyball. Yeah, all those events are open. Study night, it'll be reserved quiet time for any studying, if you just don't want to be in the library, because the library is honestly the loudest place during finals week. And so I know a lot of the STPS offices are holding after hours for studying. I think back is going to be the latest till 11. So yeah, y'all need that study time. And with that, is there any other senators or associates who wish to report at this time? We are moving to confidence business, and the parliamentarian for 2 hours on the confidence clock. And with that, we'll start with new business. We'll start with the BSOFT bill. So back to the floor. And can we read the abstract?
Yes.
So the abstract of this bill is funding to supplement the board for student organization funding and travel grant operations and awards to encourage the sustainable growth and flourishing of CSU's clubs, organizations, and communities.
And with that, you'll have 5 minutes of presentation time. I know you have the giant presentation, but anything else you'd like to talk about at the moment?
Yeah, so you all saw our presentation. I think it covered most of what we want to talk about. In regards to the expedition, we decided to, follow your timeline and be a little courteous to the information that you all probably need. So we're gonna not expedite or try to do that or anything like that. I really appreciate you taking your time out of this week. I know finals are coming up. I know I gotta study. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to say thank you guys for listening to us and taking what we said into consideration. We appreciate it greatly.
Now we'll open a 10-minute question and answer for any more questions. These are questions. Sometimes we get into discussion debate. Let's start first with placard, Senator Aiken.
So I see that we're taking 22,000 and 8,000 all from Senate discretionary. But I'm wondering why none of that funding has got us coming from exec, because like the budget, your budget was created by executive branch, and I'm a little bit worried that it might end up becoming that Senate is a wallet, and we're not a wallet for other ASCSU as much. So yeah, you could answer that question of why exec hasn't provided these funds.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Senate is definitely not a wallet. I think Senate is probably considered the cornerstone of this organization. Not only can y'all fund projects, but you also approve virtually any substantial action that happens in the rest of the organization. So we did have that conversation a little bit earlier. If you remember back, I believe it was Chair Frisky that was bringing it up, as well as Senator Burke. But essentially, the way that the president and vice president have allocated the budget, this year, there's a lot of things, that are tied up in line items that we can't move. And if we were to contribute executive funds, it would come from the logical places like state and local policy, diversity and inclusion, Department of Health, certainly are possibilities. But in my opinion, maybe not the first possibility to come to mind. But like I mentioned earlier, we're happy to continue this conversation and pull up the budget in budgetary affairs, which I believe this bill will be sent to. We can debate a little bit, see if we'll bring the president or the vice president and see if we can allocate some funds there.
This is one focus question. If all of those other line items are selected to place, why is Senate selected to place when, like, we have designated reasons for using our funds also that aren't necessarily refilling your budget?
Sure. Well, again, like I said earlier, President DeSalvo began in BSOF. BSOF is where he learned the ropes of this organization, came to love this organization, and eventually became elected president from. And so I think it speaks greatly that he decided to cut BSOF's budget down when that is his passion project. So that really shows that it's a holistic analysis of the budget, and it doesn't play favorites. It's simply a numerical analysis of where can we best predict the funds to be used. And sometimes things come up. Sometimes we have a more active RSO community at CSU than we expected. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a newly elected president or vice president, you get elected, you have a week or less to plan a budget for a cabinet that you don't know who it's going to be, for a year that you can only guess what will entail. And I have confidence and believe that President DeSalvo and Vice President Silverhart have predicted that fairly well. However, unexpected circumstances arise. Do you have anything to add?
I would say why I think it should come from Senate is I think the Senate really represents all of CSU students as a whole. And while I am on the executive board, I would say BSOF operates independently of the executive board. We have our own bylaws. We operate separately. And I mean, for my personal budget, I only have like 500 discretionary and then 1,000 to host BSOF events. So in terms of like my position, I don't have a lot of influence on how BSOF works other than like being the chair. I can't say my opinion, things like that. And I think it's truly like the Senate, which really broadly helps the CSU community, can also help BSOF, which serves a similar purpose, if that makes sense.
So the Senate represents everyone, but the exec not represent everyone? Is that not also the job?
Exec does represent everybody, but you look around the room and you see representatives from virtually every facet of the university. Executive is a little bit different in that it's project based, and you know this. You're the veteran here, right? So you know that how ASCSU is structured, but maybe perhaps for the folks that are maybe a little bit new to this organization, you know, you've got the 3 branches. We're all familiar with that, but you also have 3 boards outside of that. BSOF is one of them. LSAB, which Senator Camber or Associate Camber mentioned earlier, and SFRB. And those operate similar to branches, except that they have a much narrower scope of work. And so BSOF is in that category, much narrower scope of work. But we're asking Senate to come together with us on this. And like I said, we're happy to have this discussion in budgetary affairs. We'll bring the vice president and the president in budgetary affairs so that we can look at the budget and make a holistic and numerical analysis.
Senator, I'm sorry, but you're now out of time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, next we have Chair Taylor.
Do you have a specific date of the sunset of these funds, of when those will come back to the Senate fund?
Yeah, so if you look in, I believe the last therefore clause, yeah, so it'll roll back into the fund balance if it's unspent. So the fund balance is the section of the budget that is not allocated to any specific part of the line item budget, if that makes sense. So you've got things like the Senate discretionary, you've got Office of the President discretionary, for example, and those are all allocated line items. But then it's advised to keep about 10 to 15% of your overall budget in your fund balance to ensure safety from emergencies. So if it's unspent, it'll roll back in there. And that'll be at the end of this fiscal year.
And do you have it doesn't look like you have a date on that in the bill. Would you be willing to add a specific date that would happen?
Sure, we can add yeah, we'll talk about that in committee. I think the best way to add that would be rolls back into the fund balance at the end of fiscal year 24 if unspent.
Awesome, thank you. I yield.
Sure thing.
I will say we are coming close to our question and answer time, so I would, what?
Yeah.
I would just ask, and I'll just exhaust the speakers list, so then everyone on the speakers list have time to ask the questions. Or not. Okay.
Motion to exhaust the speakers list.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Ayes have it. We will go next with Associate Camberg.
I would like to move the previous question as we already had Q&A earlier.
Point of order, we just motioned to exhaust the speakers list. Wouldn't this be a 2/3 to overrule that motion?
Yeah, it's a different motion.
Carter says it's a different motion, so. There a second? Oh.
What's happening?
Oh. The 2/3. It is a 2/3.
What's happening?
Motion to previous question.
How many people are on this? I'm so sorry. Point of information, how many people are on the speakers list? 2. Okay, thank you.
Point of personal privilege. Could these two people just quickly motion?
I'll rescind my motion. How about that? We'll get through our next 2 people and move on.
To motion to redundancy. I yield.
We'll let those people decide. Next we have Senator Melchior.
First, I just want to leave the points for patience, but last year, did we not have to have a bill to allocate additional funding to BSOP?
Are you talking about like the seed fund thing or?
I believe during last year's Senate, we had a bill that also came to the Senate to allocate additional funding to BSOP.
It was, yeah, the bill that like if any funds weren't used from DSOC, that it'd roll into the slice fund. I know that we had that email threaded, so.
Yeah, so it's like bill like 5223, you can look it up, but it's like, we didn't get more funding last year. BSOP will like only spent 115 around there out of the 150. So the remaining funds from that rolled into a seed fund over at Slice that me and Ali are managing. And the purpose of that is to give like startup funds to registered student organizations. So it's like they apply, go through me and Ali, then if awarded, they get $300. But
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Yeah, Asher's completely correct. It's Bill 5223. BSOP extra funds. It is in the binder if y'all would like to look over it. Last is Associate Rivera.
Okay, so this is like my first one, so I don't know if I can ask this, but I'm gonna ask it. Is there any way we can like possibly split the bill with Senate and executive, just so it's not as much being pulled from both budgets?
Yeah, sure thing. Is this your first time in Senate?
It's not like my first time,
Oh, no, first time asking? Okay, well, welcome to your first time asking. I don't come here too much, so. So yeah, we've that's a discussion we've been having. And then if you're familiar with the Budgetary Affairs Committee, we're going to discuss that in there and see if we're able to do that. That's more of a conversation with the president or vice president. Yeah, that answers your question.
Point of information, has that discussion happened?
I would assume not.
No, there are possibilities that we have tentatively discussed, and I know that that sounds very vague because it's very tentative right now in where that money could come from. But in a formal setting, in a committee, that's the best place to have that conversation.
Point of information, we have discussed it a little bit here this evening.
Point of information, Senator Melchior, I just want to let you know, I pulled up that bill. And it seems like no money came from Senate for that. Instead, it was money coming from BSOL to be reallocated directly to student orgs for them to have seat. There has been no funds as of last year to move money from Senate to BSOL.
I will just do a quick point of clarification. Since this is a discussion, I promise you, I'm not spoken by a piece of promise. We're not having a discussion, I'm giving information.
Okay.
Since this is something that we've just started talking about tonight, this still has to go back to exec leadership to discuss how that works. They may have been like, oh, theoretically this could happen, but they haven't had that full conversation. So that's why we're being waited until budgetary affairs so they can have time to have those conversations. So folks are so confused by that.
Sammy, this is why you're my favorite current chair of the accessibility office.
Damn right.
All right. Also a reminder, little point of clarification, budgetary will be meeting this Friday, 11:30. Feel like Nora or Chair Haslam would say that, but and with that, this bill will be sent to budgetary, DEI.
University. Maybe, just kidding. Intern, well, university.
We'll send it to all committees. All y'all have something to do.
Madam Speaker, if I could request maybe only the necessary committees, as we want to follow this bill super closely. And it is during finals week.
So my one reason of sending it to, so I would like DEI to look over it because of the fact that there is a lot of things like the equitable, take it out of here. Of course, budgetary. This is RSOs, so that is a university section.
Okay.
And then
it moves into.
I guess
I got you.
internal, would you, I don't know, do you think this falls under your committees?
If you feel that it does, no worries, we can make it work.
I would kind of like to see that, just so that we can give people a chance to talk about it.
Fantastic.
If you guys want us not to see that, that's fine, but.
We'll be there, Senator Taylor.
I want, yeah, I was like,
Chair.
yeah, because I was like, it is an internal thing, Senate discretionary, Senate funds. That's the only reason why I was like, okay, no committees. Alrighty,
Thank you all so much.
thank you. So
Permanent accessibility.
Thanks, everyone.
And as we're applauding, CSU is beating Colorado 41-28.
Next, we will be looking at the permanent accessibility caucus bill. Can we read the abstract?
This bill seeks to reestablish the ASCSU Accessibility Caucus as a standing caucus of ASCSU with membership offered to all students involved in all three branches of ASCSU, as well as students not a part of ASCSU, with the particular intent of advocating for disabled students and providing accessibility for all disabled students at Colorado State University.
Sorry. So this bill essentially makes the Accessibility Caucus have a permanent seat similar to the Women's and Social Justice Caucus. It would still have to be re-ratified every year, just like the Women's and Social Justice Caucus. And a huge part about the bill that I think is really cool, it holds us accountable to actually doing work by requiring there to be either a semesterly or yearly report, depending on the caucus itself and how much they have to do that year. If it is too much for them to do it semesterly, they have the option to do it yearly, but they do not have the option to opt out of it. Devin, do you have anything? Yeah, no, that's it.
Is there any questions? Senator Davis.
I think I asked this, but I definitely forgot. So do you have a plan for if we do make this a permit, what the accessibility caucus is going to do?
Yeah, so a lot of that's written in the whereas clauses, and you'll see a lot of that in the report as well, from the caucus. A few things from the top of my head that I know are in the report are working with the EpiPen initiative, but, to, install EpiPens throughout campus, now that that is Colorado law, and that has to do with accessibility. Another huge thing is working with RAs with accessible housing. There's currently not one ADA room for RAs, which is illegal, and that's just the forefront of that. And then there's a bunch of other projects that I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. Sammy, if you can, go right ahead.
I'm not gonna spoil the report, but there's a reason it is a long report. There's a lot in here.
Next we have Chair Taylor.
So since I guess, exploration date of this caucus has been pushed back, why is it still needed that this would be like a continuing practice?
So the reasoning to create a continuing caucus is again, for the amount of projects we have been reached out to fulfill. And the importance of accessibility within the space. It's another reason we chose not to become a subcommittee, and see a caucus as well, is so that we can get faculty, staff, alumni, and students outside of ASCSU to join us. I have plenty of faculty that give me anonymous, printed out pieces of paper of things that they want changed within accessibility for them. And that's another thing that's going to be included within the report. And I think it's important that this caucus is permanent to ensure the safety of accessibility on campus. Also, just to like tell y'all, accessibility in the state of Colorado is constantly changing. There's literally a law passed over the summer that pursues the accessibility online for all government facilities, including federally funded universities in the state of Colorado. So that's going to change so much for this organization and outside of this organization, that I think is very important that we have students that not only is this their passion project, they are being educated on how to go about accessibility.
And you mentioned some about the demand of things to take a look at with like students and faculty on campus. How much demand have you gotten with that?
So for those of you that don't know, I'm an academic coach with the SDC. This year, this semester, I've seen over 100 disabled students one-on-one. And during those sessions, I like to ask them, like, what do you want to see? And when I say every single one of them have at least 5 different things, I'm not joking. When I say every single faculty member, the second they find out what I am, they tell me what they want to see. And it is so overwhelming that the report is 30 pages and we only have 20 things listed right now during recommendations.
And how many students and like faculty attend the caucus?
I believe the largest number we've had is 14.
So the amount of folks that we've had attending in-person meetings, I think it's been close to 5 to 6, give or take. But there's a lot of other individuals who participate outside of those meetings. We have individuals who are coordinating accessibility initiatives across campus, who are meeting with faculty and leadership of the university. We have folks online who are operating through CSU Global who are operating their own capacities to assist the caucus. So we have a lot of folks who, while they're not physically in this space, have done a lot of work for the caucus outside of the space.
Thank you, and I yield my time.
Is there any?
It's not, oh, here it is. I have a question, Madam Speaker. If I need to make an on the floor change, when should I do that?
No.
Now, gotcha. So for endorsers, we need to add accessibility caucus. And then, in the therefore clause, whenever you're done with that,
I'm just gonna do that first.
okay, go down to the therefore clause. Where are you? Swear, guys, I'm not crazy. As well as all students, faculty, and staff on campus. Do you see that? Yeah, right there. Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other? Senator Burke.
I forgot I could ask this. Can I also be added to endorsements, please? Sorry, but.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry, I figured, I'm like,
Is there any other questions at this time? I will send this. Parker would like me to make a suggestion that we expedite this bill. If you would like to make that motion, you may make it now.
Motion to expedite this bill.
I second.
What is the
Just needs to expedite 2/3.
I'll do this, or one of y'all can add your motion for unanimous consent.
I'd like to move order. Do we need to have discussion and debate on whether to expedite a bill? I believe that's in the bylaws.
Let's do it. We'll open a 10-minute period of discussion and debate. So this way, please keep your placards up so I can get the name down. We'll start with Chairman Auntie.
Oh my God, the whiteboard's back.
Hey, y'all. I just wanted to say that this is a bill that I am listed as a collaborator on, so I do have a lot of stock in this because I fully believe that this caucus is vital, is definitely necessary for this campus. I feel like it is a good place for us to hear the voices of the students and hear what they feel is inaccessible, so we can make this place accessible. We need to have accessible places in order to study, in order for people to get that education. And if we're able to have a place where we can hear those complaints and see what we can do on our end, I just fully support and encourage that.
Sorry, make a point of order, more information. This discussion and debate is to whether to expedite it, correct? Not on the bill itself? Thank you.
I just wanted, but yeah, no, definitely, I'm down for expediting it, getting it in and out as fast as possible. And yeah, no, I need the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next we have Associate Kimber.
I'd like to move to previous question.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Nay.
I'm gonna say the ayes have that. We will now vote if we will expedite this bill. We are not voting on expediting it at the moment. We are voting if we are going to expedite the bill. All those in favor of opening up the vote to expedite the bill, please say aye.
No, that was to end that was to understand question.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We are on to expediting this bill. All those in favor of expediting this bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? I'm gonna call that the ayes have it. This bill has been passed.
No, not
We're not.
Now we go into second. So now we have to pass it. That was to expedite.
Make a motion of, like, actually, no, we'll just do another vote. Votes for it.
Wait, we have to go into discussion and debate again.
Will someone just say that it's literally just defines what caucus is, so we can be done with this? Literally just the definition of a
I
caucus.
meant to discuss the debate. I'm actually gonna start this way. So I started that way. Senator Kirk.
It's so awful.
Okay. Hi, I've spoken on the season chunk tonight. I am someone who possesses what is called an invisible disability. It was not something that has impeded me for a lot of my life, but in recent years it has gotten a lot worse and it has caused a lot of strain and struggle on my life personally. It is something that has opened my eyes to the fact that accessibility is a constant battle and what people needs changes, sometimes by year, sometimes by day, you know? So having a space where students feel comfortable discussing a subject that is very personal and extremely volatile in ways, it's very important to have that space and give them the ability to speak up about certain issues. I am all for keeping this is a caucus, right? Okay, caucus around for as long as necessary, because accessibility will never be something that we stop talking about. And it's something where we'll never fully be accessible for everyone in the way that is important. There is no like pinnacle or making it. It is a constantly evolving struggle that we will have to work through every day to make sure that we are getting people, you know, the care and attention that they need. So I am fully behind supporting this, as I just quickly endorsed it because I realized I hadn't done that yet. Yeah, I'm fully behind this and I am fully willing to pass it. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next, we have Chair Bisky. I am also disabled, and sometimes it really sucks because the world kind of puts you on the back burner and is like, yeah, we don't need to focus on that. So it's perfect to have someone and a group focus on that. So with that, I feel like it's a no-brainer. And can I motion a previous question? Yes. Yeah. Cool. I motion for a previous question.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We are now getting into the voting of passing this bill. Let's say it.
And I motion to pass this bill with unanimous consent.
You don't need to. Is there any dissent? This bill is passed with unanimous consent. I thought tonight would be quick.
It was an hour long. Well, it's only 50 minutes, but yeah.
That? You're kidding.
The presentation? That was 50 minutes.
I think you're. No. Yeah.
We're here for like 4.
Next, we are doing, fiscally and otherwise accessible elections bill. I think I just put accessibility.
This bill aims to alleviate the financial burden of accessibility guidelines placed on students participating in an ASCSU election. Accommodations made for accessibility purposes and for no other marketing purpose may be excluded from an elections budget with proper documentation and approval from the elections committee.
Okay. Hi, y'all. We're
Oops,
Right there, right next to you. There you go.
oh hey.
Yeah.
Hi, y'all. We're still talking about accessibility. So one of the things that was brought to our attention in discussing the accessibility Lex is that accessibility guidelines within ASCSU affects elections, as those are ASCSU events as well. One of the things cited was campaigning events. And so I learned a bunch about elections. Election budgets for campaigns are capped at $12.50, is that right? And so anything you do is a part of that budget, any resource that you use. And so one of the things that was cited was that accessibility accommodations could encroach on that already relatively small budget. So the idea here is that if you are using a resource to provide accessibility accommodations such as shade or providing water or things like that, that they, if approved by the elections committee, can be exempt from your it doesn't mean that they won't cost something, everything has a cost. But like a canopy, you could either buy another one or you could borrow one. In elections, if you borrowed a resource like that, it would be assessed at its market value. So the idea here is that we would take away from the budget the cost, it would be considered an exemption, and it would go through elections committee for approval. So you can't just say, hey, we're gonna call this an exemption for anything, any other thing.
The exceptions here, like if it has marketing materials, so let's say you wanted to have a canopy that provides shade as an accessibility accommodation, that's one that's not currently laid out, but could potentially be. It's one example that was used in the argument for why we shouldn't have that be an accommodation. If you had your logo on it, you couldn't call that an exemption. You know, you're using that for marketing as well. You could still use a canopy with marketing, you just wouldn't get it exempt as an item on your campaign budget. So the idea here is just to make sure that we're not adding extra cost to accessibility and just to alleviate that financial burden.
We will start the question and answer. I'm gonna have elections committee manager.
How do I turn this on?
What's
the face?
Thanks.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. So I have a couple of points that I wanted to make, just about this bill in general. When I'm talking about the bill, at least right now, the very first thing that I want to start with is that I'm going to separate the contents of the bill from the process of the bill. Okay, so I'm not going to speak to the contents of that today. Instead, I'm going to speak to the process. So for first and foremost, this bill did not accessibly reach my desk until this morning at about 9:30 to 10. So that did violate the 48-hour rule. However, besides that, it did not reach the desk of any elections advisors. We don't have an elections committee yet. That will not happen until spring semester either. So something to keep in mind about the process that we're going to be moving forward with this bill is that right now we are in a stage where this is kind of just like a presentation to discuss this. And so this bill can be proposed to the Senate, but then it has to come to me as a petition. And then I have to go back through it along with the Speaker of the Senate and with the Chief Justice. And then we have to go through this whole process again in the spring. Okay. And that will be the actual ratification of this bill as accounted for. I looked, it's outlined in section 806 of the, whatever the one for this body is, the Constitution, no, the Constitution. Like the 806, and then I think it was like subsection D and C. I also had reached out to the court just to verify that my interpretation of that was correct. And I got verbal confirmation from both the deputy chief and the chief of justice. In addition to that, underneath the petition clauses for the elections code, I would recommend, since this will have to go under petition, to overview that as well. Besides that though, there's a couple of other points about this bill that I just wanted to note. As of right now in the endorsed by category, it is listed that, I believe, apologies. I originally had thought, I'm so sorry for this, but this was not originally sent to me. This was sent to somebody else who was listed under the title. I know that me and you had talked about
Point
this.
of order, this is a time for for a question and answer.
This is a point of information.
Information?
She has the.
Yeah, so with that being in mind, there's a whole process to the elections code amendments that needs to happen. The very first one is that we have to have an elections committee in order for any like actual further and like real amendments to go forth. Because the elections committee is chosen on a year-to-year basis, it will all be dependent on the amendments that are going to be proposed by the elections committee. At least that is my current understanding as outlined by not only advisors, but also justices. In addition to this, there's just a couple of other points and processes that I'm concerned about. And the majority of them is just that if we go forward with this now, the concerns will come up again in the spring, and then I will come back to you and I will say, okay, these are everything that needs to change in the elections code for us to have a successful election this year, as outlined by the elections committee, me, and also elections advisors. And we, in the name of accessibility, it's kind of spoken within the same tone as inclusivity. And right now, everybody that actually deals on a day-to-day basis with the elections code was exempt from this conversation. We were not included, and we were actually just almost written off. So that is one of my main concerns with this bill in total. I don't have, as of right now, any major issues with content, but as this will come back to us, that will be our time to discuss content, in my personal opinion. Right now, I'm more focused on the process that we must take in order to ensure that all of the elections code amendments and stuff like that are going through the exact processes that it needs to go through. And a lot of this stuff is outlined in the elections code. It's also outlined in the Constitution as well. But I'm just shouting that out now, so then I don't have any discrepancy later on. Thanks.
Point of clarification, you mentioned that, you did not receive this in an accessible manner. It was sent out in the weekly email. You should be on that, and that, by expired 48 hours.
Yeah, and in the weekly email, I was still not able to access it, so therefore it would not be an accessible way within that 48 hours. I was still blocked. I checked on Friday. I also checked again this morning. I checked on Tuesday. I checked on Monday. I know that you fixed it for me personally this morning. And I also know that the way that I received it before she had fixed it for me originally this morning, me specifically, this was, I'm believing, a me technology issue, was because I got a copy from Jason Hewitt, who also only received it just this morning.
Okay. So I do apologize because I was misinformed as to who our elections manager was. So I was under the impression that things were starting to move with elections. So I did send it out. It does have, it is supposed to be accessible via the link to any one of you. So I know we've had some issues with that. I just really want to make sure that we're introducing this idea so that we can't say that because of elections, we can't be held to a standard of accessibility. That's the main point here. So there are definitely things that need to be hammered out on. This is not complete. And one thing that just I totally spaced on was something I wanted to speak to tonight anyway, is that because election committee stuff has its own process, that was something that was talked about like, I sent this document to everyone whose email I could find, every member of Senate that's listed online, and every member of exec. Judicial, I had the wrong impression of who was, I didn't know, I'll be honest, I didn't know who our elections manager was, and I was told it was someone else who was in judicial. So that's an oversight on my part. So I just want to make sure that we're getting this ball rolling in this discussion. So we don't, I don't want this to be in any way seemingly rushed, and I don't want this to be done incorrectly. But I do want to introduce the idea that we are not going to use elections as a scapegoat for why we shouldn't make the space accessible in all ASCSU events. Are there, I think we still had question and answer. Were there others?
Yeah, next video is Senator Milford.
I yield your time.
Next is Senator Davis. Yield. Your turn.
This is more for the election manager, since you mentioned, the elections code edits. Where does it say that only the elections manager, elections committee can make edits to the?
Not in the elections code, that would be in the Constitution. And that was section 8, like subsection D, as was outlined to me by the Chief Justice and by the Deputy Chief Justice. That was their interpretation of that.
So,
not to mention, if this is still proposed and is a petition, and I see that right now, and I also read through it before I came up here, and I'm still stating that I got that confirmation and the interpretation that I had correct, from my understanding, which is why I wanted to come up here and say that.
okay. You said subsection D, that's saying, it doesn't necessarily need a yearly readoption. is what
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
thinking.
I meant, sorry, apologies. Was it? That would be subsection C, including the execution of an election, the operation of the elections committee, and responsibilities of the elections manager and the elections committee members in relation to the referenda and elections code.
Point of information, you said you got verbal confirmation. Did you submit an opinion to get like professional clarification?
The Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice are allowed to make just their own interpretation unless an opinion is requested on this specific.
Okay.
She is allowed to go off of just
Okay.
general statement.
I just want to double check.
Any other questions? Sure.
So I guess just to begin, I would like to say that I like the fact that you have this as not including these accessibility provisions as campaign expenses, but it's still an expense that somebody has to pay. And so I guess how do you plan on keeping elections financially accessible to all students? Because I know that that's something that's challenging to fund an election.
Okay, so one of the examples given was like a canopy. A canopy is expensive. Well, you can borrow one. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a new one. So there are workarounds. If you're using a space that already meets the accessibility requirements, then you don't have to incur any extra cost. That's at your own sort of discretion. So like if you're, almost every space around we give us a campaigning in LSC anyway, but like, depending on where you are, you might not have to go through any extra steps. So this is just to ensure that if you should incur costs, that it's not going to work against you in your campaign, is the idea. So campaigns cost money regardless, whether they're accessible or inaccessible. And we already have the precedent set here that materials have to be accessible. So it's not, that's one of the things mentioned in this bill is that we have a precedent set already that accessibility is part of elections. And it's just to go out just a little bit farther to the events that are held. I don't know that I kind of got a little bit on a tangent there. Does that answer your question, or would you like, is there more clarification needed?
No, I think that's okay. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next we have Associate Wilson.
Okay, so question. Have you heard from anyone within the LSC that would like to donate anything for ASCSU events?
Okay, so I'm not sure if this would count, or if this was applicable to elections necessarily. But in regards to accessibility of water, in the LSC, for example, we have water fountains everywhere. We have access to water. But when we have events outside that have food, that's a proposed facet of future accessibility legislation. I'm so sorry. I just lost my train of thought for a second. So we've already gotten some confirmation that Mike Ellis was willing to put forth the first $50 towards water being accessible outside. We also have, he needed more clarification, so we'll get more clarification on this. If just water is something that needs to go through LSC catering, if you're just providing water, which it shouldn't, but that's not 100% confirmed, but that's in the works as well. So like, for example, if you wanted to bring a water jug, you could fill it up literally in the office over here and provide water if needed. So the main point is just to alleviate, more reasons why we can't be accessible.
Also, point of information. You can do that, right? Yes. Okay, a point of information regarding budgetary things when it comes to accessibility. The interpreters are already provided by the SDC. Earplugs are provided by the LSC, both of which have said that it doesn't matter what type of event, they will provide it if needed. Furthermore, I am in discussion with a few people. I need to get the elections manager included on those conversations about utilizing canopies that are already owned by the university for elections things and simply flipping them inside out so you can't see any marketing on it. So, yeah.
That would mostly be a point of clarification. Information is requesting, clarification is given.
Appreciate that. That always confused me.
Yeah.
I give my time.
Last we have Senator Winston.
Okay, so I guess my main question is kind of two-parter. So would it be on Yeah, so like, would maintaining accessibility be on the candidates? So like, how do I put it? So like, even though, I wanna like put it into like correct verbiage. But like those candidates are running under like, the elections umbrella of ASCSU. And so, like, that was kind of my first question, is it on, yeah, is it on those candidates to make sure that their events are completely accessible? And like, and when I say responsible for, I mean like the financial burdens.
Okay, so I can see why that's kind of a two-parter. So under the elections code, candidates are required to, already make their, like reading material, their materials accessible. So, and that's on the candidate. So I'm going to go ahead and say the costs associated will also fall under the candidate, but, the point of this is not to really meddle in like the election, process or affairs. It's really just to hold elections to the same standard that we hold ASCSU, as an organization, that all of our events, it's in our constitution, they have to be accessible. We all took an oath to uphold that part of it and all of it. So the idea of, yes, like if you are hosting events underneath ASCSU, that you have to be following ASCSU's accessibility guidelines, whatever those may be. And so right now, our accessibility guidelines are what we already have on books. The point of this is also that those may change, and if they do, then that will still apply, that our elections will be held to whatever standard we already have set for ASCSU. And I just want to make it really clear, I sent this to everyone at the same time. There was no like hierarchy of like who was included or wasn't, everybody got it. And I've never, this is my first piece of legislation, so I do apologize to the parliamentarian about the confusion about the document itself. I sent a link rather than the physical file. Digital file, this is a better way to put that. So I just want to make that clear that I'm just kind of new to this process, and I wanted to make sure that this got sent out. It was kind of sent out in 2 waves, but all the same time.
I'm just gonna say we're out of time for question and answer. Only so honest, I don't think either of us kept track of time. But I'd like to assume we're over 10 minutes. This will be sent to, I wanna say both internal and university, because it's an elections thing and people outside of ASCSU can still run. DEI as well. There's not any specific money allocation, so I won't send it to budgetary. So internal, university, and DEI. With that, we are going to move to committee abstracts and concerns.
Ending roll call.
Ending roll call. Yes.
Motion to use beginning roll call as end roll call and have anyone who arrived later just join and not vote on it.
Second. Any dissent? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the ayes have it. Committee reports. Internal.
Like I mentioned in the beginning of the Senate meeting, we don't have a time yet that we'll be meeting next semester, but we'll be getting that situated at some point. So come to committee so that we can discuss all the bills that we got assigned today and the funding WGAC bill that we still have, and I yield my time. Oh, and have a good week. I yield my time.
Budgetary is not here, so I'm just gonna assume Chair Oslo would say budgetary 11:30 this Friday, but there will be no budgetary meeting next week. University is not here. DEI.
Holding my committee, normal time, 2 to 3, Friday, will be our last meeting. Come for the fun question. I think you'd enjoy it. We'll not be meeting next week. We'll figure out a time for next semester, probably first week of semester. All right, good seeing y'all. Bye.
Women and Social Justice Caucus.
No, I have nothing.
Accessibility Caucus.
I have something, which is always really sad that I have something to be quiet. So again, thank y'all for extending accessibility to be a permanent thing. That's super cool. That's super slay. I wasn't expecting that to happen tonight. we will be, again, talking more about the report. If you were in the group meet, keep an eye on the group meet, don't break, because I'll be sending stuff out there, cry about it. And we will be presenting stuff at the beginning of next semester for the report. That's all. Thank you.
And with that,